Hello fellow book nerds, this is Gabby and today we're going to be talking about my favorite LGBTQ plus books. Happy Pride Month! It's Pride Month, at least in the UK, I think. Normally in June we have the Pride Parade, which I've been to a couple of years in a row now. It's always so much fun. But of course, this year due to the pandemic, I really don't think that's gonna happen. But I thought nevertheless we could celebrate with a little bit of book recommendations, and these are my favorite queer books. So it's all kinds of identities and all kinds of books. I don't really read contemporaries, so this is a great place if you wanted to know more like fantasy and sci-fi and one historical fiction rather than like contemporary stories, because I just don't read that much of those. But I love fantasy and I love finding fantasy with queer characters. I just think it's fun to find representation in all kinds of genres. I think contemporary books were what kind of pioneered it, as in like that's where most queer books were when I was like 14, 17. I feel like most of queer books I read were contemporary novels, and now there's so many authors coming out with LGBTQ plus books, characters in all different kinds of genres. So I think that's awesome for people like me who don't particularly love contemporaries. And yeah, I just want to share some of my favorite ones. Of course, not a very comprehensive list, as I haven't read all of them, but these are the ones that really spoke to me and I think have a nice wide variety of different identities. We're kicking off the list with a personal favorite that I recommend in every recommendations video, so you might be sick of it, but it's Ace of Shades by Amanda Foody. So in this book, we follow our main character, Anne, whose mother goes missing, and Anne, who's like a proper lady, she's in the finishing school, she decides to postpone her graduation and go find her mother in the City of Sins, and she's helped by Levi, who's a crime lord. So this book has a lot of different representation in terms of queer characters actually. So our main character's mother, it's never like explicitly stated, but she does dress fluidly, and it's said that she dresses as a man some days, as a woman other days. She's like, again, not given a clear identity, and her pronouns are she, her. But it's really cool to see like fluidity in gender expression there, so I think that's really cool. Then we have Levi, who is the main love interest or the other main character, and he's bi or pansexual, again never stated, but we do see him getting in a relationship both with Anne, who's a girl and the main character, but he's also enters into kind of a relationship with another character who's a man, and we like see them interacting, kissing, and like it's really nice. I don't know, I really like that we got to see him express his bi or pan identity in the story, and I like that he never felt like the man or the boy he was dating was like any lesser than Anne. It's just Anne was the one true love, but besides the point. Then we also have a lesbian couple with one of the side characters, but they are quite important, and like it is more of an ensemble. It starts like a two main character thing, but it definitely evolves into an ensemble thing. And I think then we also have a gay couple in the last book, so it's very diverse. I really like how it's approached. As a bi person myself, I think seeing Levi so comfortable with himself and even not using labels but being so like open with his attraction to men was really refreshing and really nice, and it was nice to see in a fantasy novel. So yeah, Ace of Shades is a brilliant novel anyway. It's a trilogy. I love it. It's like a high fantasy, yeah, I guess it's a high fantasy, but the City of Sins is kind of reminiscent of like New Orleans, that kind of vibe, and it has also magic system. It's really good. I keep recommending it because not enough people have read it. Alright, so the next book is The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo. This book is a very short story. It's maybe only like 100 pages or something, but it packs such a punch because it's all about this monk who goes to find out different stories from people. He approaches this handmaiden who used to be a handmaiden to an empress, and that it's like the handmaiden telling the monk the story from the past. It's all very like Inception-y. The story is inspired by like East Asian culture, and I love the story. I think it's so beautifully told. It's about like finding yourself. It's about powerful women. It's just wonderful story, a really well written, so quick, so nothing standing in your way. And the monk actually is non-binary. They go by they them pronouns, and also the empress is queer. So all of that was cool to see, and I think not common to have a non-binary like narrator. I wouldn't necessarily call the monk like the main character, maybe, because they are definitely like more of a narrator, or like the story is being told to them, but at the same time like it's really cool because I refer to as they, them, and all of that. So I liked seeing that, and I liked seeing the queer relationship with the Empress and stuff. So overall, there's so many reasons to pick up this book. It's really, really good. Next up, we have the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. So in this book, we follow a world that has these people who have a power to call on the elements, especially like Earth. And once in a while, they'll have this big event called the 5th season, where the Earth basically becomes almost impossible to inhabit. That's all I'm gonna tell you, because this story is a little bit complicated. It has like different perspectives that all weave together very well, and I just think you should experience it on your own. But the main couple is a polyamorous relationship. So we see a woman and two men in like a happy relationship together, and obviously then some parts of the relationship are queer. Well, it's kind of funny because like one part of the throuple I would say is like gay, one is straight, and another is bi or pan. So it's like an interesting mix. But I definitely loved seeing this relationship. It's not something that I'm used to and I read a lot of. I don't think it's that common in books to have polyamorous relationships. Maybe it's more common if you read like erotica and that kind of thing, but it's not really in like just a fantasy and just seen as like a normal way to exist. I really enjoy that aspect of it, and I really think there's so many great reasons to read this book just because it's so good. But I liked also seeing that polyamorous relationship developed and the dynamics in the relationship, all that was very interesting. Next up, we have Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. So this book is by a Latinx author, and we follow our main character, and he is a trans boy, and his family is like a type of magician that's like connected to Latinx culture. They're like brujo and bruja, I think that's what they call themselves, and they can like converse with the dead and stuff. And the main character wants to go through like the confirmation ceremony to receive his powers and stuff, but because it's very gendered ceremony, like women that receive very different powers to men, his community is worried that because he was designated female at birth and now is male, there's gonna be an issue. So he goes through it in secret, and he gets entangled with a ghost of a high school peer. The author is a trans man, and the main character is a trans man, and their relationship is gay. So that's really cool. It was really, really cool to see. Again, this book is so amazing for many other reasons. Like I love the culture, just like the story itself was very interesting, and overall really, really enjoyed it anyway. But like the added element of queer characters was really cool to see, and I really, really liked it. And I think the audiobook was pretty good as well. If you like audiobooks, I'd maybe give it a chance. It's really interesting. Next up, we have Pet by Akweke Emezi. So in this book we follow Jam. We follow Jam, who lives in a perfect world, in a perfect society where all evil was eradicated and all monsters were eradicated from this little town. And one night, one of her mother's painting comes to life, and it's like this creature that looks like a monster, and his name's Pet, and he says that he's there to get rid of a monster who's threatening these community. This was an amazingly diverse book with a black main character and black author, but also a trans main character. So Jam is trans girl, and then there's also, again, there's a polyamorous relationship. It is more of a secondary like characters. It's the parents of one of her good friends, but it's really cool to see like again a functioning polyamorous relationship that's like really loving and stuff. Really loved seeing that. So overall, like it was really diverse in that sense. It had that many different types of relationships shown. Again, such a good book on its own as well. All of these books, I decided not to put books that just had queer representations. I decided to put my favorite books, which also happen to have queer representation. They're just good books and they happen to have queer characters. So next up we have Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. This book is a funny one because it's not a fantasy, it's like a contemporary, but it's like an adult contemporary, and the way it's structured is kind of like a bunch of short stories, but they're all connected with each other and they all talk about the experiences of Black women. It was really fascinating to see how it'd be like, oh, this character called Anne knows this character, and then the next story would be about Anne's daughter's friends or something like that. So despite them being separate different stories and short stories, they were still connected and sometimes gave us more context and more understanding of the previous stories, previous characters. So I really enjoyed this so much. But also like all the women portrayed, they fall into all different like diasporas in terms of like age, where they're from, where they grew up, poor, rich, all kinds. And also there was lesbian characters, there was a trans character, and I just really loved seeing that. It was really like a really good view of like a very diverse amount of different perspectives, and it really shows you that one group is not a monolith. Like Black women are not a monolith, everyone will have different experiences, and that was really cool to see. And again, a lot of queer characters and queer relationships as well, which was with different dynamics, which I thought was very interesting. There was, for example, one that was quite toxic, and it was interesting to see that it was like a lesbian couple, but then there was also like this woman who just like having multiple partners, and there wasn't a polyamorous kind of setup, but not necessarily like one relationship, but she was polyamorous. It was just really cool to see. I highly recommend this one. It's such a good book, so well written, just like spoke to me so much. And the audiobook, again, really good. I didn't know what I was getting into because I thought it was nonfiction when I started it, but it was brilliant. So next up we have The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. So I've read this book quite recently and I fell in love. This book is so wonderful. It's kind of described as being like an adult middle grade. So it reads like middle grade, but it's adult. And I would definitely agree with that to an extent. It kind of feels like a series of unfortunate events in whimsy. So we follow the main character called Linus, who works at the Department for the Magical Youth, and this department basically takes care of all the magical young people who don't have a home, because in this world they're like non-magical folks and then magical folks, and the magical folks are quite heavily like restricted in what they can do. And Linus is one of these people that go to orphanages to make sure that the children are safe and well provided for and all of that. And one day he gets a special mission to go to this very like top secret orphanage, and it just goes from there. I love this book. Again, so many amazing things about it. But the main character is gay, and there is a gay relationship, and it's just so wonderfully like woven together. It's just so sweet. And there's like kind of a secondary gay relationship, but like a lesbian relationship. It was wonderful. I love how it's like executed. I loved seeing like, also this world doesn't really have homophobia as far as I could tell. It was more like, oh, that's fine. Like everyone was still banging on the main character because he was like 40 and single, but they were not mad that he was like gay or stuff. I found it wonderfully so slow burn and just like beautiful. I don't know, it was so good, and this book is just like wonderful anyway. So the next book is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this book is a historical fiction, and it talks about a fictional like Hollywood starlet. So Evelyn Hugo was like one of those like super famous people in the old Hollywood, think like Audrey Hepburn or something. She's fictional, and now we're in the present. We are watching as one like a young reporter does an interview with her and talk about her life. She also had 7 husbands, and it's kind of a story like, why did she have 7 husbands? What's up with that? So we do have bi main character. I don't want to tell you too much about the story because it kind of packs a punch again if you don't know anything going in, but so I've just like I really loved it. I love how it's like executed. I like there was a talk about not erasing one part of identity because it doesn't fit a neat narrative, and I think that's extremely poignant with the conversation happening on Twitter always about validity of bi people if they're not in a queer relationship. And I really like that this character was like, nope, I am not lesbian, don't take away part of my identity just because it suits your narrative more. So I really enjoyed it, really identified with it. I think it was a beautiful story anyway, about like being famous, being remembered, what really matters in the end. Next up we have Sorcery of Foreign by Margaret Rogerson. So this is a standalone high fantasy, and we follow this girl who grew up in the library and she discovers magic. It's cool. I don't really remember that much about this book. I read it like quite a while ago and very quickly, like in a day, but I really did enjoy it. I thought it was a cute story. But the representation I want to talk about was Nathaniel, who's the main love interest, and he's bisexual. And I really loved how it was done because he does not get in a relationship with another man in this story. And it's not a big plot point at all. It's very casually mentioned that he also likes men. And I like how casual it was, and it just really took me by surprise because at that point I've not read that many queer books that weren't like contemporary queer. And just, I don't know, learning that bit of information in such an offhand way, where the fact that the characters bisexual was like not that big a deal. I really loved it, and I liked how it made me feel more seen because I'm also a bi person who's never been in a queer relation, in like a lesbian relationship, because I've met my boyfriend when I was quite young. I loved seeing that. I don't know, it was really well done. I really personally liked that. This one doesn't have that big of a role to play, but to me personally it meant quite a lot, so I just wanted to mention it. I thought it was like a fair one. The last book we want to talk about now, it's called Mirage by Samaya Dowd, and this book follows the story of a girl who gets kidnapped from like a party. She's in a party and she gets kidnapped by the government because they want her to be like a double for the princess because she looks just like the princess. And it's a sci-fi novel. It's a really good series overall. And there's no queer relationship in the first book as far as I remember, but there is a queer lesbian relationship in the second book, and it's like a big part because it's one of the two main characters that gets into this queer relationship. So I really liked it. I like how it was done. I really liked the rapport of the two characters that were in a relationship. Really like that. But yeah, it's only in the second book, so I don't know if that is a deal breaker, but I really liked how it was done. Alright, well, those were 10 queer books I wanted to recommend to you. I really hope you pick up any of these and enjoy them. I hope you have a lovely Pride month. Let me know in the comments what books you would recommend to me, maybe like fantasy, sci-fi, with queer characters. I would love to hear your recommendations. I feel like I have a good stack that I want to get to, but you can never have too many books on your TBR. I just don't think it's a thing because there's always more books you could read. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Happy Pride, and if you could like, comment, subscribe, I really appreciate it. But that's it from me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!